Who can tell me who Jochebed is? I see there's no low. Oh, Cheryl's not here. She's the one. Who's Jochebed? She was the mother of someone. As soon as I put on the reading, you'll know who it is. So I'm just asking anybody. Okay, we'll leave it at that, and let's do the benediction. Nobody knows. Moses. Today I want to speak about the marks of a good mother. The marks of a good mother. And it's a long reading. It's Exodus 2, verse 2. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. I don't want to go in, because once you start reading the next verse, then you've got to read the next 30, and then, you've got to read Exodus to be able to get the whole story of where Moses was. So when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. Why did she hide him? The Pharaoh wasn't a nice fellow. Yeah, okay. The Pharaoh wasn't the greatest guy around, so she hid him. So today I'm speaking to mothers and not about mothers. The kids that we had up here just now talking about their mothers. I'm talking to mothers and not about them today. God, I'd hate to know what would happen if my kids were at that age and they had to ask about me. I won't even mention my wife. A man's best friend is not his dog. Believe it or not. A man's best friend is his mother. Every child needs a good mother. Would that all of us could be grateful to God for a good mother. I suppose we could look back, those of us whose mothers have passed on, and look back and think about it. Those of you that have still got your mothers can be grateful. In this age of selfishness and materialism, we need to look at the virtues that present mothers and future mothers would do well to seek. So it's the virtues of a good mother. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at it, and we're looking at it from the view of Moses' mother, Jochebed. She possessed many of the marks of goodness and greatness that are needed by mothers today. Okay, so I suppose I should have got my wife to preach this rather than me, because she can talk to the ladies. I'm not going to talk to the ladies this morning, but then I'm going to get a flat hand when you leave. So Jochebed, which means the Lord is glorious, had a good husband. You've got to start somewhere. To have a good mother, there must be a good husband. He was from the tribe of Levi. And we can assume that he shared the same faith, ideals, and hopes as did his wife. We can assume that. Every mother, or every woman, shall I say, not every mother, every woman needs a Christian husband. That's why you have mothers praying for their daughters to find a good Christian husband. That's why mothers take the daughters off to youth groups, and you hope that you find someone that's a budding pastor there that might be the one that is just the right one for my daughter. Why is it when your son wants to get married, now I've been through this 3 times, okay, my 2 sons and my daughter. When the sons come home with the wife, the woman that they've chosen to be their wife, you say, yes, that's great. But let your daughter come home with a guy, okay? If you had a double-barrel shotgun, you'd be standing at the door and finding out what's going on. You don't like that one, or you don't like that one. Eventually, you've got to be careful, though, because if you tell them you don't like the one, then that's the one they bring home. So you've got to just be wary of that, but you've got to watch what the daughter's bringing home. Many women find their greatest opponent to the proper rearing of children is the father of those children. And that's true, because the wife, I remember growing up, I go to my mother and I'd say, can I go across the road and go and play? She'd say, no, it's only 15 minutes to supper, you can't go. Then my dad would be in the lounge and he'd be reading the newspaper. I'd go in there and I'd say, Dad, can I shoot across the road? He said, yeah, go. So when you get back, who told you could go? I said, Dad told me I could go. So then he's in trouble. But the problem is that the rearing of a child, the biggest problem that they have is the husband. So the woman tries to bring the child up properly when the husband gets in the road a little bit. The husband can and should help his wife to be a good mother. Can and should. Okay, but we're not talking about husbands, and it's not Father's Day today. It's Mother's Day. So we're going to go on to the woman now, properly. Seemingly, Jochebed recognized parenthood as a glorious responsibility. This wasn't a burden in her life. It wasn't the fact that she would never sleep again. It wasn't those type of things, because now that my kids are 33, 30, and 28, my wife still doesn't sleep because she worries about them somewhere else. They married with their own kids. Let them be sleepless. Doesn't work. She was willing to disobey a king to preserve the life of her child. The Pharaoh said, kill all children, all Jewish children. They don't want them to breed anymore. It's out, finished. And she went against the king's wishes and she hid her child. She risked her own life for her child. Now, who wouldn't do that? But I mean, she took a chance. Those days, it was the sword spoke. So if they found her, they would have killed her on the spot. There was no question. There was no court case or constitutional court to go to, anything like that. She would have been gone. And hers was the joy of creation and preservation. I mean, she made this little thing out of the bull in the bulrushes. You've got to think about those things, you know. Lucky the river wasn't running too hard. I know it was on the side of the river, but, you know. But all these things. And she had her other child keep an eye on it until, of course, the princess came along. Motherhood for her was a service to God and to a nation in a time when both needed what only good mothers could do. They couldn't do anything else. Pharaoh had said, you're going to die. And she said, that's not going to happen, not to my child. She was a woman of vision. He, that's Moses, was a goodly child. It's another translation. Acts 7:20 tells us that he was exceedingly fair. Hebrews 11:23 tells us that he was a proper child. Now, what's a proper child? If you want to know what a proper child is, go into the Little East class out here now and go and have a look what's going on. Those are proper children. In Afrikaans, they're going to kere inside there. Okay, but they're having a great time. She had prophetic insight. She realized that this child was special. So she had some insight there that could set him apart from everybody else. She saw the possibilities of a life for her nation, for her God, and for future generations. It's always easy when you read the story because you know how Moses turned out. So it's always easy. You know the end. But if you were living it at the time, it was quite something. Okay? But we know the end of that story. I hope you all know the end of that story. Okay. And she recognized that the baby was designated for spiritual purposes. She determined to cooperate with the purpose of God for her child. She wasn't going to stand in the way of whatever God wanted to do with her child. Took some bold steps. Took some serious stuff. She was a mother of faith. In Hebrews 11:23, we told that. She had faith in God. She trusted God to look after her and her family. She had faith in herself under God. And she had faith in her child. Quite something. These are marks of a good mother. That's what we're talking about here. So there's still a chance that some of you, when your kids are bigger, you can sort of backtrack a bit and start having faith in those kids. All right. You don't have to wait until you have a little one like that, and then you've got to do all these things. She was a mother of courage and sacrifice. She would not accept defeat. You've only got to be a teacher in a class to know that mothers don't accept defeat. Give their child naught for a test and see what the mother does to you in the class the next day when she comes storming in and beats the daylights out of you. I've done that. Okay, I haven't given a person naught on purpose, but I've had a mother all over me because I wasn't fair to the child with the mark. And you know what the mark was? The child got 99.5 out of 100, so I gave her 99. I said, I don't round up. You made a mistake, so you're going to lose a mark. Mother wasn't happy, child wasn't happy. And I certainly wasn't, because I got sorted out. Okay. She wanted to do all in her power to meet the need of the hour. Look, understand where she was at that moment in time. Pharaoh had made a decree that all males will be killed at birth. And she went against it. And she did all in her power to meet the need of the hour. She hid the child for 3 months. And then put him into the bulrushes when he was 3 months old. And, sort of waited for something to happen. And we do know the rest of the story, don't we? I hope. She was more than just a parent. She was a teacher of God. Children need more than the material things of life. Things have changed. I know that I'm pre-computer and pre-TV times. And there are many of you that are. And some of you that have grown up, that are quite a bit younger than me, will never know what it's like not to have a television. But I was in my last year at varsity when TV started coming out. And we used to watch the test pattern. It was the excitement on a Saturday evening, watching the test pattern. And then we had to sing the stem with the flag on there. Little things like that. That's all changed now. And at varsity, we used to go into the one lounge there to watch soccer match, an overseas soccer match. The group of us would go and watch, because there was only one TV at varsity. Things have changed. We didn't have things like X, Y, and Z box and all those type of things. We didn't have those things. We used to play outside with dinky toys, play in the mud, get dirty, get a hiding, get dirty, get a hiding, dirty, get a hiding. That's what went on. Life went around. And I read a thing the other day, and they said, do you remember drinking water out of the hosepipe as a kid? And then sharing it with your friend, and then having some more, and then sharing it with your friend. None of you got sick. But now you've got to go buy bottled water, because if you drink the water out of the hosepipe, you are goner. It's all those type of things. Things have changed a lot. There's been huge change. So there are more than material things in life. Children need to have the inspiration and guidance of things spiritual. Now, you can say, well, I do my bit. I take them to youth on a Sunday night. On a Friday night. So they're getting a bit of a spiritual input, even though youth isn't specifically designed for a huge spiritual input. It's there, and you're in the right sort of environment. And then I take them to Sunday school on a Sunday morning, and there they can get some input. But we can only assume that she taught Moses about God. She pictured for Moses the heroes of the faith. How do you get G'd up to do something? Read the story of the heroes of the faith. I've got a book at home called The Generals of the Faith. And it talks about people like Martin Luther and people like that stepped out in faith, because they could have been put in jail, burnt at the stake, or for heresy and all sorts of things. She taught Moses to be sympathetic towards the unfortunate, and we see that in his life. She taught Moses to be intolerant towards injustice, and we see that because when the Egyptian was beating up a Hebrew slave, he killed the Egyptian. So there was a problem. And she taught Moses about the God of Israel, the one that's in total control. So she did her bit. The mark of a good mother is a mother doing her bit, teaching the children about spiritual things, about God and about Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and learning that. Let them learn it in their lives. We were speaking the other day, I think in Bible study, and I said, I remember the RI classes at school. Most of the time we just did our homework in the RI class because the teacher couldn't have cared less what we were doing, as long as we were quiet. But some of the teachers took it very seriously, and we had to memorize Psalm 23 and Psalm 121, and I've never forgotten those two, and then other things. We were taught stories. When you went to Sunday school, and I was in a Methodist Sunday school, so we had Sunday school up to the end of standard 5 or grade 7, and we learnt the stories of the heroes of faith of the Bible. When I got to college at the age of 40, which was a long time after I was in grade 7. When I got to college, the Old Testament professor said to me, "How do you know so many things about the Old Testament?" I said, "Because I went to a Sunday school that taught it. And we learnt it, and we wrote tests on it, exams, and all sorts of things." So it's just a fun time in Sunday school, but we learnt the stories of the Old Testament, the heroes of the faith. So someone was teaching us. And you all get happy when you see that picture because you know I haven't got any more points. That must be coming to an end. Every child needs a genuine Christian mother. One who knows, loves, worships, and serves God. No one can give your child a Christian mother except you. You think, "Oh, it's all right. No, that Tunny so-and-so there at Sunday school, she can be the Christian mother." It doesn't work like that. You're the mother, you must be the Christian. You must sort it out. Determined to let God help you and cooperate fully with Him as He works in your mind and heart, that your children might have the best possible mother. You're listening, Alex? Good. So I'm just sort of preparing you for the way. Husbands, your wife must have a Christian husband who is sympathetic and cooperative if she is going to be the kind of mother God wants her to be. Vitally, vitally important. With God's power, you can help your wife provide your children with the kind of mother that they need. So you need to support your mother. I'm not talking about, can I go and play across the street? Not that kind of support. It's not that. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about supporting your wife, that she becomes a good mother to the children. In other words, back her up when she starts talking about things of Christ. I was at varsity with another guy, well, lots of guys, but we shared a house together. And when we left varsity, we parted ways. He lived in Cape Town, and I lived in the Eastern Cape. And when you live in the Eastern Cape, you don't normally drive out of the Eastern Cape. You stay in the Eastern Cape. So I never went to Cape Town, and he never came up our way. And, we drifted apart. Years. And then I went to college and all that. And I went down to a Baptist assembly down in Cape Town, Fishhook. And Jen and I had gone down the day before, so we stayed in one of the hotels, in Pinelands Hotel. And we walked into the restaurant next door. And I looked down between the tables, and there standing was this friend of mine. He had his back to me, but I recognized him because he had red hair and it was long onto his shoulders, the same as when he was at varsity. Now he was in his 40s. So I looked at him and I said to Jen, I said, "That's Ed." She said, "Really?" I said, "Yes." So she rushed up to him and put arms around him from behind. He didn't have a clue. He turned around, he didn't have a clue who she was. The memory was gone. But he knew me, and we got chatting. And I told him I'm in Cape Town, blah, blah, blah. And he said, "You've got to come and have a meal at my house. Meet my wife and my 2 kids," which I did. We both went. And I had to go through the kitchen for something, and his wife said to me, "Please, Garth, please, please, one thing I ask you. Do not mention church at the table." Ed is totally, totally against church. He says, "I go to church. I take my 2 kids, we're part of the Anglican church, they go to Sunday school, etc., etc. But Ed will not support me at all." I said, "Fine, I respect your wishes. I won't sit there and sort of bamboozle him with biblical talk." And we sat down at the table, we were given our plate of food, and we sat down at the table, and he looked at me and he said to me, "What made you go into the ministry?" 25 minutes later, my food was cold, I was still talking. He didn't say he was impressed, but you could see he was a little bit impressed. His wife was over the moon that I was telling him exactly what he needed to hear. Now, what he did with that information, I don't know. I've never followed it up. I don't know what he did with it. But he's also now in his 60s. When his children were dedicated or baptized or christened in the Anglican church, he refused to go to the front with his wife because he said, "I'm being a hypocrite. I'll stay at the back of the church. I'll be here to support you, but I'm not going up to the front." Difficult guy. He wasn't that difficult when he was at varsity with me originally, but that's what happens. And so the wife doesn't always have the support of the husband. Now, that can be a massive problem in a home. Can be a big problem. So all I'm saying to you is, husbands, and Father's Day is coming, okay, and that's another issue altogether, but husbands, support your wives. It's vitally, vitally important. If you've never received Christ or never accepted Christ, it's never too late to do it. You need to do it. So He can dwell with you in your home and bless your kids with you. And there are many things you are unable to provide for your children, but with God's help, you can at least, as a father, give them a Christian mother. So that's my challenge today. Can't do much more than that. I can only challenge. I can't do anything else. So I ask that you just truly think about it. Make sure that you're talking the same language when you're at home. Talk the same language. Don't disagree with, if your wife is telling them a story and you might be sitting at the dining room table. If we still sit at dining room tables, I don't even know if we do. But when we do, those were the best times. They're sitting around the table having a meal and sorting each other out verbally at the table. We've lost a lot of that because, TV tray is not quite the same thing. When you're sitting and watching something on TV, it's not quite the same thing. But support your wife. Even if she says something wrong, mention it to her afterwards. Say, that was Moses you were talking about, not Joshua.